Yeah, it's game time now. This is, for me, all the stuff with Dol Guldur and with Gandalf, the additional stuff that's been added in to this movie trilogy, has been so interesting to me. Like, I've been less interested with the main plot of these movies, the quest for Erebor with Bilbo and the dwarfs. No, what I've been interested in is the stuff with Gandalf, the White Council, and Dol Guldur and the Necromancer. So this, for me, is what I came to see: the Battle of Dol Guldur. Yeah. So we cut to Dol Guldur, and obviously Gandalf is still imprisoned in this gibbet. Of course, that's how we left him at the end of the second movie, imprisoned inside this gibbet, and he's completely beaten up, near death, of course, all at the hands of the Necromancer, and things are about to get worse for him, because this orc appears, and it's what was a really nice touch is this orc, they used the practical design that they were going to originally use for Bolg, before they decided to go with a CGI design. Yeah, so this orc that was originally the practical Bolg appears, and the way it looks as though he's been sent to finish Gandalf off. Like Sauron has decided the wizard's no use to us. He isn't going to tell us anything. He isn't going to join us. So kill him. May as well finish him off. So this orc comes in and goes over to the gibbet in which Gandalf is held. He pulls the gibbet off the chain, throws it to the ground, rips the gibbet open, and he's about to grab hold of Gandalf and finish him off there and then. Fortunately, Galadriel arrives and saves the day. Oh yeah, she just, of course, Galadriel doesn't carry a weapon. She doesn't need to. She appears, and the orc senses this and turns round, and Galadriel fires like this bolt of energy out of her hand and kills the orc instantly. Well, kills an understatement. Completely obliterates this orc. We never see a body, and that's probably because there's no body left to see, because Galadriel just BAM! Kills him instantly there and then. Yeah, so that orc's dead. It was nice to see that practical design that they were going to use for Bolg finally on screen, but we don't see it for very long, because Galadriel shows up and blows the damn thing up. So yeah, she's killed that orc, and she goes over to Gandalf, and she sees, oh, he's nearly dead. We need to get him out of here. So she picks him up, and she's planning on carrying him out of Dol Guldur. She's got him in her arms, and she's taking him out of there. Because I don't think initially she went into the fortress expecting to have a battle. She was going in there to get Gandalf and get him out of there, But of course, the Hobbit films being as they are, it's not as simple as that, I'm afraid. I'm sorry, Galadriel. It's not going to be as simple as that, I'm afraid. She's on her way out, and then suddenly the Necromancer, we don't see him, but we hear his voice, and then the 9 Ringwraiths show up in their shadow form. And of course we get that scene which we see in the trailer with Galadriel drops to her knees with Gandalf in her arms, and of course she's surrounded by the 9. And then when we think all hope is lost, the dream team arrives. Oh yeah, Elrond and Saruman show up. My God, these two guys are the dream team. They really are, because these guys show up and all hell breaks loose. These two guys fight off the 9 ringwraiths. Oh yeah, Saruman's taken Saruman will take care of a few, and Elrond will take care of the rest. Elrond's got Hadderfang in his hands, and he's just swinging for the fences, just taking out ringwraiths left, right, and centre. The same for Saruman. He's just smacking them with his staff. Oh. Saruman's got some moves. Of course, we already know Elrond has, but yes, Saruman's quite good as a fighter. I don't know why he didn't get his hands dirty more. But yeah, Saruman and Elrond fight off the ringwraiths, and then we get this wall of fire emerges, and then of course Sauron emerges in that wall of fire, and he's in it, and very much similar to what we saw in the Desolation of Smaug, at the bridge, when he reveals himself to Gandalf, like walking through that wall of fire. Very much similar thing here, and yeah. And of course, the 9 ringwraiths reappear, stood in front of this wall of fire. So you've got this huge standoff. Sauron and the 9 on one side, and then of course Saruman, Elrond, Galadriel, and Gandalf on the other. And then at that moment, Radagast arrives on his sleigh, and Galadriel says to Radagast, you got to get Gandalf out of here. Because she manages to revive Gandalf. I think that bit we see in the trailer where she kisses him on the forehead, I think it sort of acts as a kiss of life, because she kisses, and then suddenly that revives him, and yeah, so he's gonna be fine. He's gonna be fine, folks. So she says, she says to Radagast, you need to get him out of here. So they get him on the sleigh, and Radagast gets him out of there. Well, this is amazing, right? Because of course, in the second movie, Gandalf, of course, loses his staff, that gets destroyed, but he also loses his hat and sword when he gets attacked by Azog. But when Radagast takes him away in the sleigh, and we cut to them outside of Dol Guldur, Gandalf's just got his hat and sword back. Don't know where he got them. I wonder if when Radagast was tearing through the fortress on his sleigh, he must have just picked them up. Gandalf will need these for later. But yeah, Gandalf gets his sword and hat back. We don't know how. He just gets them back, but it's okay because it's Gandalf, and we've seen a similar sort of thing throughout the Lord of the Rings movies, so we just know to go with it by this point. So yeah, Radagast gets Gandalf out of there, and then things really escalate, because, I'm one of those who, it's been debated, hasn't it, as to whether Gandalf and Galadriel are in love. I firmly believe that they are, and this pretty much backs it up, because obviously Gandalf was almost killed there at the hands of Sauron, and after Radagast gets Gandalf out of there, of course you've got Elrond, Saruman, and Galadriel left in this fortress, and you've still got Sauron to deal with. Galadriel completely loses it. She freaks. Oh. You know what we see in Fellowship when Frodo shows the One Ring of Power to her, and then she just completely changes into that, like, she activates God mode? We get that here. Oh, she changes and gets back to her feet. She looks frightening. I wasn't sure whether we were going to need to call Max von Sydow in real quick to perform an exorcism. Jesus Christ, she looks terrifying. And it's a good thing Sauron didn't kill Gandalf, because if he did, I don't know what Galadriel would have done. I mean, I said in reference to the Fellowship, you know, when Gandalf died after fighting the Balrog. It's a good thing that Balrog died too, because if that Balrog had survived, Galadriel would have hunted that damn thing down herself and killed it. Yeah, could you imagine? This may not be the first time an elf's killed a Balrog, but it's damn sure gonna be the last. Yeah, she'd have. Oh Jesus. Yeah, but yeah, she just completely freaks. And essentially, it's hard to explain because the way it happens, what essentially happens is she essentially performs an exorcism on the fortress. Yeah, she banishes Sauron's spirit, or so we think, from the fortress, never to return. Yeah, that's essentially what happens. She banishes the spirit. You know, so like we think, oh, the evil's gone now, and of course we know it isn't, because that was a feint on Sauron's part. He was of course retreating to Mordor. But yeah, the way they did it was quite an interesting way. It's difficult to describe, but of course when you see it in the theatre it'll all make sense. But that's essentially what she does. She essentially performs an exorcism, and obviously Sauron disappears and the Nine disappear. So essentially she single-handedly took care of Sauron and the Nine. Yeah, honestly, I knew Galadriel was powerful, but until then, oh wow. Yeah, Galadriel may well be Galadriel may well be the most powerful being in Middle Earth. Jesus Christ, you do not want to mess with her, and don't hurt her, Gandalf, or she will kill you. She really will. Yeah, like you say, you don't even have to kill him. If you just hurt him, she will kill you. Yeah, so that was really good, and like I say, Saruman and Elrond tag teaming against the Nine. That's something you guys need to see. That is beyond cool. They really are my dream team now, Saruman and Elrond. That was fantastic. And yeah, I need to talk about this because of course that was one of the most exciting shots of the trailer. That shot of Christopher Lee saying, "Leave Sauron to me," and that happens after Galadriel's performed her exorcism on the fortress. Because, of course, she then returns to a normal form, and she's completely spent at this point. She's, she's worn herself out. And, of course, Elrond's helping her up. And Saruman says, Lady Galadriel spent much of her energy. Take her to Lothlorien. And, obviously, Elrond says, well, what are we going to do about Sauron? And then obviously we get the line, "Leave Sauron to me," from Saruman. But interestingly enough, we don't see what happens in the movie. And I was initially, when I got out the theatre, I was a bit annoyed at that. I wanted to see something between Saruman and Sauron. But we don't see that. I mean, that shot of Christopher Lee saying, "Leave Sauron to me," is the last shot we see of him in that movie. We don't see any more. Now I wonder whether in the extended edition we might, maybe, but if we don't, I mean, it'd be disappointing. But I know people have suggested whether we might have seen some hints or some early stages of Saruman turning evil, or we may have seen the moment at which Saruman joined forces with Sauron, and that was a valid theory of what we might see, but it was a theory that I wasn't happy about. I was saying, oh, I hope that doesn't happen, and maybe this is better. This is for the best. It's an example of it's better to show a little than to show a lot and then or show too much and then regret it later. So maybe even if we don't see any more after that, it's not necessarily a bad thing. We can just fill in the blanks of what may or may not have happened. That's fine. But yeah, that's where pretty much how it ends. We get Christopher Lee saying, "Leave Sauron to me," and that's the last we see of Dol Guldur and the White Council. But yeah, we may get more in the extended edition. So following that, of course, Galadriel and Elrond and Saruman and Dol Guldur, we don't see any more of them after that. So it's kind of like that plot's being cleared up. So following the Battle of Dol Guldur, Gandalf sets off for the mountain. He's got his sword, and of course Radagast gives him his staff. Of course Radagast doesn't die. I was actually hoping he would, but no, he doesn't. He doesn't die. He just gives Gandalf his staff, obviously, and like people have said, it's probably a case of he realizes Gandalf will have more of a need of it than he will, so just gives it to him as a gift. So yeah, got his staff, got his sword, and he gets on a horse. I think people have speculated as to whether that horse is one of Beorn's. I don't think it is. I think it's Radagast, because after the Battle of Dol Guldur, Radagast and Gandalf return to Radagast's house, and there's a horse there ready and waiting, so it looks as though it's Radagast's horse. So yeah, Radagast gets on his horse and sets off for the mountain. So that's that. That's the Battle of Dol Guldur cleared up. So yes, then of course Legolas meets up with Tauriel, and he informs her of what's happened, because of course the last time we saw Legolas, he was chasing after Bolg, and we find out that he chased Bolg so far, and then Bolg met up with the rest of his troops, and of course Legolas ended the chase there and came back to meet up with Tauriel, because he overheard Bolg talking with the other orcs about Mount Gundabad, and Legolas thought, instantly alarm bells rung with Legolas, and he knew he was going to have to go investigate. So he's come back to meet up with Tauriel, tells her what happened, and then they go off to Mount Gundabad to see what's really going on over there. And they go there, and that's when we got that shot of the trail, where they're on top of that hill and they're looking at those bats, and Legolas of course says these bats have been bred for one purpose, for war. And then of course while they're there, they see Bolg emerge from the mountain, and he's been followed by a huge battalion, a huge pack of a huge orc army that have been obviously bred in them in that mountain, and of course we all know where they're heading. They're heading to war. So huge army being led by Bolg, they're heading for Erebor, and then of course we've got a huge army being led by Azog, and they're also heading to Erebor. So yeah, there's a lot of orcs headed that way. And of course these orcs aren't alone, they've been accompanied by X amount of trolls, so as if the thousands and thousands and thousands of orcs that weren't enough. Oh no, we've got whoever the hell knows how many amount of cave trolls to deal with too. It just keeps getting better and better. So following that, so we return to Bard and the people of Lake Town. They're set up now in the ruins of Dale, and Thranduil and his army arrive in Dale, and Thranduil has brought some provisions for the people of Lake Town, and he says to Bard, I'm here to reclaim what is mine. I think we get that line in the trailer at some point. I'm here to reclaim what is mine. Of course, those white gems of pure starlight to which he refers in the second movie. That's what he's there for. So of course it's established now that obviously Bard has an interest in the mountain, and Thranduil also has an interest in the mountain, and of course they mean to make sure they don't walk away empty-handed. So following this, Bard goes to the mountain, because when Thranduil turns up, he's ready for a fight. He's not there to negotiate. He's ready for a fight, right? But Bard says, "Do you know what? We might not need to fight. I mean, I know you've brought your whole army with you, and that's great. We may need them, but let me go talk to him. I'll see if I can find a peaceful resolution." Thranduil says, "You're welcome to try." So Bard goes to the mountain, and he meets with Thorin, and he asks Thorin if they can come to terms, which should be amicable, you know, if they can reach some agreement. And that goes rather well. Thorin flat out says no, and refuses to honour his promise to the people of Laketown. And Bard's like, "Well, there's nothing more for me to do here. I better go back to Dale." You know, God damn it, Thorin. So yeah, Bard's attempt at coming to terms with Thorin proved unsuccessful. But again, you've got to admire Bard, because he's just doing. He is the star of this movie. Luke Evans kills the dragon, becomes the king of Laketown, and yeah, was one of the commanders in the Battle of the Five Armies. But yeah, he's the one who's trying to find a peaceful resolution, because of course Thranduil arrives ready for a fight. Yeah, because of course he doesn't like Thorin at all. He'd be happy to go in there and decapitate him. Yeah, so, but of course Bard is looking for a more peaceful resolution, of course. So, but unfortunately he fails, and of course returns to Dale, and obviously breaks the news to Thranduil. "I'm sorry, my attempt proved unsuccessful." And then, of course, Bilbo is then thinking, you know, this isn't good, because obviously Bilbo is witness to Thorin just flat out rejecting Bard's plea for a peaceful solution. Yeah, Thorin says no, and Bilbo's like, "Oh no, this isn't good," and because he realizes, you know. He even says to Thorin at one point, "You guys, you're outnumbered. You can't fight that army of elves that are out there," you know. But of course, Thorin knows something that Bilbo doesn't. He says to him, you know, "We're outnumbered now, but we won't be for long," because of course he sent a carrier pigeon to Dane, his cousin, in the Iron Hills, to come with his army of dwarfs to reinforce them. So that's what Thorin's waiting for. Now, following this, Bilbo, of course, in possession of the Arkenstone, he slips away from the mountain one night and makes his way to Dale. And of course, Gandalf by this point is now there in Dale, and he's trying to warn Thranduil and Bard about the danger that's headed their way. "Guys, you've got a bunch of orcs. A bunch is a bit of an understatement. You've got tens of thousands of orcs headed in your general direction. I mean, I know you've got your grievances with the dwarfs, but there's bigger things to be worrying about. You know, we've got X amount of orcs and trolls headed our way. We need to get ready for a fight. I mean, you know, we need to do something. We're in trouble." But Thranduil in particular, he doesn't want to hear it. He doesn't believe Gandalf. I think Bard is unconvinced, but he's more open to the, you know, he's not as dismissive as Thranduil is. Thranduil doesn't want to hear it, because he thinks Gandalf is simply trying to stop them from attacking the mountain, attacking Thorin and company. He's trying to save his friends, and he even says to Gandalf at one point, I know what you're doing, you're trying to save your friends. You're lying. He isn't, because he's seen firsthand. But no, Thranduil won't listen. And obviously Gandalf has got, oh Jesus, you know, I'm the only wizard who does his job. I'm really trying. I'm really trying, but I'm just not getting through to you. Of course, Gandalf the White wouldn't have stood for it. Of course, we've seen the way he just flat out beat up Denethor in Return of the King. Thranduil is lucky Gandalf the White isn't here. But yeah, so while all this is going on, Bilbo of course arrives in Dale, and he gives to Bard and Thranduil the Arkenstone. He gives it to them, and he says, you know, I took this as my 14th share, and of course you know yourself, Thranduil, how important, how valuable this is to Thorin. Like he says in Desolation of Smaug, it's precious to you beyond all measure. This will give you the bargaining power you need to get what you want. You know, of course, Bard, you want Thorin to honour his promise. Of course, Thranduil, you want your gems of pure starlight. This Arkenstone will give you the bargaining power to get what you want, and of course there'll be no need for a fight. So following that, Bilbo returns to the mountain. Contrary to Gandalf's advice, this is the scene, I think we see it in the trailer, you know, where Bilbo says to Gandalf, I'm not afraid of Thorin, Gandalf. And Gandalf then turns around and says, well, you should be. Yeah, that's the scene. And of course, Gandalf advises him, you know, don't return to the mountain. You need to get as far away as you can. It's not safe for you anymore. But Bilbo says, no, I'm not running. I'm going to go back. So he goes back. And so he returns to the mountain. And then the following day, Bard, Thranduil, Gandalf, and the army of elves assemble outside the mountain. And of course, we have a scene, of course, where Thorin and the dwarfs are preparing for battle. They're getting ready. They're getting armoured up. They're going to the armory in the mountain and getting all the Erebor armour, the Erebor weapons. They're suiting up. And of course, this is the scene where we see Thorin give Bilbo the gift of the mithril shirt. And it's a nice little scene. So I know it's something that fans had been waiting to see, yeah, and this is where we see it during that scene. Bilbo is given this mithril shirt from Thorin. So that's where it happens. So the dwarfs have got suited up and ready for battle, and they emerge at the top of the battlements, and obviously they're looking down below on Thranduil and the elves and Bard and Gandalf. And then Thranduil and Bard reveal to Thorin that they have the Arkenstone, and they make a final attempt to come to terms with Thorin. You know, you give us what we want, we'll happily return the Arkenstone. And then Bilbo admits to Thorin, I was the one who gave it to them. Because Thorin initially thinks they're lying and they've got a fake, you know. You say, you're lying, it's a fake. The real Arkenstone is within these walls. And then Bilbo says, I'm sorry Thorin, that isn't true. I gave it to them. I took it as my 14th share, and I gave it to them to give them the bargaining power they needed to get what they wanted from you, because you left us no alternative. You wouldn't listen to reason. And Thorin, yeah, this is again completely unlike what we've seen from him so far in this series. Yeah, he just completely loses it and tries to kill Bilbo. He's going to throw him from the top of the battlements onto the ice below, but fortunately the other dwarfs manage to stop him from doing so, you know, grab over him to, you know, and restrain him. And then while that's happening, Botha takes Bilbo to one side and says, you know, you need to leave now, it's not safe for you anymore, go while you still can. And obviously Bilbo leaves the battlements and joins Gandalf below. So that happens, and then of course we get, following this, we get the line from Bard that we see in the trailer, you know, will you have peace or war? We finally get the line. Yeah, so will you have peace or war? It's decision time. And then at that moment, Dane arrives on the hill nearby. So you've got the battlements here, you've got Gandalf and Bard and Thranduil and Bilbo on the plain below, and then you've got over here, you've got this hill, and Dane and his entire army of armoured dwarfs emerge on top of that hill. And then as soon as Thorin sees it, he starts feeling pretty safe right about now. He doesn't have to worry about these guys. So, will I have peace or war? I will have war. Yeah, we're gonna have war, everybody. It's his final decision. And obviously Bard's like, God damn it. Yeah, I've just killed a dragon. You know, I've just been appointed king. I don't want to be king. I didn't even want to slay the dragon, to be quite honest with you. I'd rather there had been no dragon attack at all, but it happened. God damn it. I don't want to fight a battle. I'm exhausted. Jesus Christ. And I've been in prison. Oh, God damn it. Poor Bard. Yeah. So, these dwarfs emerge. Dane and the dwarfs from the Iron Hills emerge, and they come down the hill. And obviously, Dane played spectacularly by Billy Connolly. As soon as we heard his voice, everyone in the theatre erupted with laughter. They were loving it. And yeah. Yeah, apparently Dane is the more dangerous dwarf, because Gandalf even says to Bilbo, you know, between Thorin and Dane, I always saw Thorin as the more reasonable of the two, and if he's ready for a fight, God only knows what Dane is waiting for. He's ready to commit mass murder. So yeah, Dane arrives on his war pig, and yeah, with you know, about, you know, it's a large army, but compared to the army of orcs that headed their way, but again, the elven army is dwarfed by that, you know. So Dane and his couple of hundred dwarfs come down the hill, and Billy Connolly then proceeds to deliver a line I never thought I'd ever hear in the Middle-earth universe, because they're getting ready for a fight, of course, and they're getting ready to charge these group of elves, and of course Thranduil and Bard and Bilbo and Gandalf. And Billy Connolly makes it clear that he wants to flat out decapitate Thranduil. Yeah, he says, you know, he won't be looking so pretty when I cut his head off. Or words to that effect. But yeah, the line that he delivers before they're about to charge, I never thought I'd hear this in a Middle-earth movie. He says, right then, let's give these bastards a damn good thrashing. Yeah. Yeah, I knew it wouldn't, I knew we were going to get colourful as soon as Billy Connolly showed up. Yeah. Oh man. Let's give these bastards a damn good beating. Jesus Christ, that was a good line. And honestly, there we go. First profanity in a Middle-earth movie, and yeah, I think I should have known. So Dane and his army of dwarfs are getting ready to charge the elves, and the elves are getting ready to charge the dwarfs. But then, of course, at that last moment, Azog and his orcs turn up. So, yeah, and Thranduil must have been thinking, the wizard was right all along. Fancy that. Yeah, the Azog and his orcs turn up. So Dane's army and the Elvish army respectively are like, oh, abort mission, and then or change target, so they start by charging towards each other, then they just turn at the last minute and start a charge towards the orcs and trolls. Yeah, so with this, the Battle of the Five Armies commences. Yeah, so of course, right at the last minute, the battle that was going to take place between elves and dwarfs is aborted, so now it's going to be elves and dwarfs against orcs and trolls. Fair enough. Yeah. Thank God, because could you imagine if the dwarfs and the elves actually had a battle and one side had just won, and then these thousands of orcs then show up? That would have been bad. That would have been really bad. Yeah, they wouldn't have won. No, the orcs would have won outright. Yeah, Gandalf's like, oh no. But fortunately, timing is everything. Yeah, so orcs show up, elves and dwarfs change targets to the orcs and trolls and charge right into them. So the Battle of Five Armies begins. Then we cut back to Thorin and company, of course, viewing all of this from atop the battlements, and Thorin simply just walks away from it all. He just goes back inside. He said, not that's a whole lot of not my problem. Let him get on with it. I'm going back inside. Are you coming back inside? I'm going back inside. Yeah, I'm not getting involved in this. And the other dwarfs are like, what the hell is this? What is this? Thorin, Dane, your cousin, who's come to our help now, who's come to our aid, now needs our help. We need to go help him. But Thorin's like, no, don't speak to me, not having it. So yeah, he just walks away from it all. And of course, you have Bard, Thranduil, Dane, Gandalf and Bilbo and the elves doing the best job they can about insurmountable odds, so they hold it for as long as they can, and then eventually Bard, Thranduil, the elves, and Bilbo and Gandalf retreat back to Dale. Bard says, everyone fall back to Dale, and you all go back, head back there. And then, so the way it works is, those guys go back to Dale and fight there, and Dane and his army remain on that plain in front of the mountain and fighting orcs there. So yeah, so they return to Dale, and there Bard manages to assemble a team of men to join the fight. To help. I need some men. That line, I think we get it in one of the trailers. Because I'm not sure which one, but Bard's saying, any man who's willing to give his last, follow me. And then of course they go and reinforce the elves. And of course, when he assembles his men, he then says to his son Bane, I need you and your two sisters to get all the women and children and get them somewhere safe. All right, can you do that for me? Good job. So, like I say, Bard has a hell of a lot of responsibilities in this. He's assembling a team to go fight, and he's making sure that the women and children are safe. He doesn't want to be king, but he takes on the duties really well. Yeah, he does such a good job in this movie, Luke Evans. So we've now got Dane and the dwarfs outside the mountain fighting there. We've got Thranduil, his elves, Bard and his team of men from Lake Town fighting in Dale. So all that's going on, and of course Gandalf and Bilbo are in Dale fighting too. So then we cut back in the mountain, and Thorin is in one of his halls of gold. It's that hall where that we see at the end of the second movie, you know, where the cover Smaug in gold, and of course where the gold is you know, all across the floor. Of course that's now took hold, so you've got a floor of solid gold now. But yeah, that's the hall Thorin's in, and Dwalin comes in and he says to Thorin, you know, look, Dane, he's in trouble. Dane is out there, he's outnumbered, and he needs our help. We need to do something, and we need to do something now. But Thorin simply says no. Yeah, he simply says no. It's not our problem. He's kind of Thorin. He's kind of turned in, you know, the way Thranduil is in the second movie, you know, like the way he's when he says to Tauriel, you know, other lands are not my concern, you know. Here within this kingdom we'll outlast all of the dangers that lurk out there, you know. Just concentrate on the land here, you know. We don't anything that happens outside this kingdom we don't need to care about. That's essentially what Thorin's turned into here, but you know, even worse, you know. So yeah, Thorin says no, we're not going to go help him. We're not going to go help anybody. We're going to stay in here and we're going to protect the gold. That's what matters. And Dwalin is completely disgusted by this, and this is where we get his line that we get in the trailer, you know, you cannot see what you've become. And it's true. And then he goes on to say, you know, a really good line actually, you know, here you stand in your halls of gold with a crown upon your head. Because yeah, that's the thing, Thorin has wasted no time to becoming king. Complete contrast to Bard, you know. Bard didn't want to be king. Thorin, oh, he's loving it. Thorin, he's got, you know, adorned himself in all the furs and the royal armour, and he's got the crown on. So yeah, Dwalin says, here you stand in your halls of gold with the crown upon your head, and still you're lesser than you've ever been. Really great line. And then Thorin, really coldly, you know, never spoken to Dwalin like this. He says, get out before I kill you. Leave me alone. And Dwalin, he's just completely shocked. You can see it in his eyes, he's heartbroken because of how close these two are. You know, he just, what else can he do but walk away? So Thorin's left alone in this hall. And again, a really interesting scene. Difficult to describe, but again, when you see it in the theatre, it'll all make sense to you. He has basically an epiphany. Yeah, that's the best way to describe it. He has an epiphany, and he realises the madness that he's descended into. He realises, you know, how low he's become, and that Dwalin's right, and that Bilbo was right when he's, you know, and of course Balin as well, you know, when he says to Thorin at the end of the second one, you know, obviously Thorin says to Balin, I'm not my grandfather, and then obviously Balin says, you know, well, you're not yourself. You're not yourself, you know. The Thorin I know wouldn't waste any time going in there to help Bilbo, you know. He wouldn't put Bilbo at risk, he wouldn't put any of us at risk, you know. And like this, the Thorin I know wouldn't say no to going to, you know, and helping Dane. He'd be happy to go out there and put his life on the line. So yeah, he has this huge epiphany, and it culminates with him finally snapping out of it, and he takes this crown and he throws it down, and then he decides to lose all the kingly robes and royal adornments and just gets ready for battle, you know, like in just the practical get-up that we've seen him in the previous movies. Obviously gets, you know, nothing fancy, just ready for a fight, you know, gets, and you know, not a fancy sword, just a plain old, good old dwarven reliable sword. He's ready for a fight, you know, nothing fancy, let's just get on with it. You want to go, let's go save the day, let's go save Dane. And of course he comes to the dwarfs, and then we get, of course, the line, you know, will you follow me one last time? And the dwarfs realise he's finally snapped out of it, he's back, and so obviously they're only too happy to do so. So, with that, the dwarfs burst out of the mountain and charge out onto the field to reinforce Dane. The reinforcements have arrived, Thorin's back. Thank God! Because of course he was really at his lowest point, you know. In the first half of this movie, he is at his lowest point. He's bottom of the barrel, but fortunately he's snapped out of it. Thank God, because if he hadn't, they probably wouldn't have won the battle. But yeah, he's back, and he's here now, and all the dwarfs are involved now. They've reinforced Dane, and from there, so Dane's been reinforced, and from there, Thorin, Dwalin, Fili and Keely then head to Ravenhill, and that's of course where Azog has situated himself to command his forces at the top of Ravenhill. So these four dwarfs split up from the others and head to Ravenhill to finish Azog off, or as Gandalf puts it, to cut the head off the snake. Gandalf loves, oh yeah, like Aragorn says to Gandalf, you know, you're still talking riddles. Well, nothing wrong with that. It's a good way of putting it. So yeah, Thorin, Fili, Keely and Dwalin head off to Ravenhill. And shortly after, Legolas and Tauriel arrive in Dale, and they meet up with Gandalf. And they tell him that, obviously, I know the situation at present, it's bad, it really is. Obviously, you've got a hell of a lot to deal with here, but Gandalf, I'm really sorry, it's about to get a lot worse, because fair enough, you've got these thousands of orcs commanded by Azog, but what you don't know is that Bolg is currently en route with another force, just as large and obviously fresh and ready to go, and they headed to Ravenhill to reinforce Azog. And Gandalf suddenly realises, Ravenhill? That's where they're going? Jesus, Thorin, Dwalin, Fili and Keely are heading right into danger. They are in danger, they're heading right into a trap. And of course, you know, Gandalf says, we need to do something, we need to warn him, you know, we can't just leave him there. So Bilbo decides, you know, I'll go and warn them. So he heads off to Ravenhill to go and warn Thorin and co. And Legolas and Tauriel also go to help, because of course Tauriel wants to go, because obviously she knows Keely's there, so she wants to go and save him. So they head off to Ravenhill, and oh no, lost my place. I should really have numbered these. Sorry guys. Okay, so here we are. So Bilbo heads off to Ravenhill to warn Thorin, and of course Tauriel and Legolas aren't that far behind. They're on their way too. So Bilbo arrives first at Ravenhill and warns Thorin and Dwalin about what's about to happen. You know, Bolg's on his way. with a massive force, just as big as what we're facing at the minute. And of course these guys are fresh and ready to fight. But unfortunately, and of course, you know, essentially you guys are walking into a trap. Azog wanted to draw you out. He's planned this. You guys are walking into a trap. We need to get out of here, and we need to get out of here now. But it's too late, because prior to this, they decided to split up, i.e. Thorin and Dwalin would take one area and look for Azog, and Fili and Kili would go scout ahead in another area. So yeah, Bilbo's got there too late, because suddenly Azog appears on like the opposite hill. So obviously you've got Thorin and Dwalin and Bilbo on one side, and then you've got Azog and his orcs on the other side, and they've taken Kili captive. And yeah, this is where things really get real, because Azog says, I'm going to kill him, I'm going to kill his brother, and then I'm going to kill you, Thorin. And he kills Kili, so he kills Fili, right? Well, yeah, he kills Kili, but well, he doesn't. Kili, of course, dies, but we'll get to that. He kills Fili right in front of Thorin. Yeah, with of course his blade, because of course he's changed the weapon he has in his left arm in this one, because of course he had the claw in the previous two films. Of course he switched that out with a blade in this. Yeah, just shoves the blade right into the back of Fili, and then throws him from this hill. And yeah, Fili's dead body just hits the floor, like, you know, with an astounding thud. You know, so if that blade in the back didn't kill him, that fall would have done, because obviously below these two hills there's just a frozen lake, you know, so thick solid ice below. Getting flung onto that would have finished him off there and then. So Fili's dead, and then obviously Kili is obviously loses it. Yeah, you know, think Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon 3, you know, when he thinks Lorna's been shot, you know, right, I'm gonna go kill a Travis now. Yeah, similar sort of thing here. So Kili just goes into a fit of rage, and he goes after Azog. Of course, he's close to Azog in proximity than what Thorin and Dwalin and Bilbo are. So yeah, the idea is Kili's gonna get to him first. So he charges after Azog, but of course getting to Azog's easier said than done, because obviously Azog has a number of orcs protecting him. So of course Kili gets tied up fighting them, and then Thorin decides to go after Azog too. You know, he's going to go help Kili. So Bilbo and Dwalin are left alone at Ravenhill. Of course, Thorin's on his way across to the other hill to fight Azog. So you've got Dwalin and Bilbo left alone on Ravenhill, and suddenly Bolg and his orcs show up. So and they attack Bilbo and Dwalin. So of course Dwalin is fighting as many orcs as he can off, and then obviously Bilbo's doing what he can too, but then Bolg just flat out knocks Bilbo out. You know, just smacks him with the handle of his blade. Yeah, just knocks Bilbo out cold. So that's how they went about it, for those of you wondering, because of course in the book Bilbo puts on his ring. You know, he's trying to stay out of it, because in the book he says, you know, war's not a place for hobbits, so he hides by putting his ring on. And then of course gets hit in the head with a rock and is knocked out that way. And I think there was some worry about how they were going to address that in this film, since they've done a good job of portraying him as this really strong heroic character, and it would have been inconsistent to do something like that here. So that's the way they handled it in this. Bolg knocks him out. So yeah, Bilbo's knocked out, and then of course, so Bilbo's knocked out, and of course Dwalin continues fighting with these orcs. So then of course Toriel arrives, and she of course she's coming to help Keely, and she's intercepted by Bolg. Yeah, her and Bolg start having a fight, and of course Keely sees that she needs help fighting with Bolg. Who wouldn't? You know, I don't think you'd have difficulty taking Bolg on your own. But Toriel's doing the best she can, and she's holding her own quite well. But she could do with a bit of help. So Keely manages to finish off the orcs he's fighting with. Then he goes over to help Toriel. So it's essentially a 2-on-1 handicap match: Toriel and Keely versus Bolg. And the fight's going on, and yeah, as the fighting, Bolg knocks Toriel to the ground, knocks the wind right out of her, so she just flat out floors, and she's trying to get up. And in the meantime, him and Keely keep on fighting. Then eventually Bolg manages to get the upper hand, and that's when he kills. Bolg is the one who kills Keely in this one. So Azog killed Feely, and Bolg kills Keely. It's pretty brutal the way he kills Keely, because obviously Toriel's trying to get back to a vertical base to come and help Keely, but before she can, Bolg kills Keely there and then. Kind of like an Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon situation, like Darth Maul killed Qui-Gon before Obi-Wan could get there. Similar sort of thing here. But it's quite brutal the way he does it, because the way Bolg's weapon works is because obviously it's this mace type thing, but the handle, it has a sharp point at the edge of it, kind of like a spear tip at the edge of it. So yeah, he just rams that right through Keely's chest. And you're like, Jesus Christ! I mean, Feely's death scene was particularly unpleasant, but I think Keely's death scene is the most brutal, is because, Jesus Christ, just rams this spear tip through his chest cavity. And of course Toriel's devastated by this for obvious reasons, so she manages to get back up, and then her and Bolg continue fighting. And then they both fall off this hill, because they go over the edge and like the edge of this plain, and could you describe it as a plateau? I'm gonna do anyway. They fall over the edge of this plateau and fall down the hill, and Toriel's really badly hurt by this. Because of course she was hurt to begin with, because that had happened, what we see in the trailer, where Bolg flat out throws her into this brick wall. So that had caused some damage to her back already, and of course this fall just made it even worse. So she's not going to be getting up anytime soon. But Bolg, he suffered a really nasty fall. Bolg is a complete machine though, so he gets up within a couple of seconds, and he's getting ready to finish Toriel off. But fortunately Legolas gets there in time to save her. Thank God. Because at this point, I mean, Legolas had been in the area, but he'd been dealing with various other orcs, whereas of course, like I say, everyone was tied up with their own fights in this, it was because even Thorin as well, of course, he was after Azog too, but yet he got had a number of orcs to deal with, you know. So everyone had their own you know, troubles in this. They were tied up, you know. It was, if they could help each other, they would, but they've got to deal with this first. So yeah, Legolas finally intercepts Bolg and saves Toriel's life. So then we commence round 2 of Bolg versus Legolas, because of course we got round 1 in the Desolation of Smaug. Yeah, so we pick up where we left off, because you know, when the way that fight ended in the Desolation of Smaug with Legolas chasing after Bolg, I thought we were going to pick that up in this, but of course we didn't. You know, Legolas came back and met up with Toriel and they went to Mount Gundabad. But yeah, we finally get round 2. We finally get the conclusion to that fight here and now at the end. So Bolg and Legolas fight, and Legolas in spectacular fashion hits a really impressive Hurricane Rana on Bolg. Of course, in their fight in the Desolation of Smaug, he threw an epic Superman punch, Roman Reigns style. So it's nice to see Legolas incorporating some wrestling moves into this. But yeah, Legolas and Bolg are fighting, and then at the same time, Thorin comes face to face with Azog on the frozen lake. Yeah, Thorin's finally finished off whatever other orcs he needed to finish off, so it's just him and Azog now. So they fight. So you've got these 2 different fights going on simultaneously, Legolas and Bolg, and Thorin and Azog. And of course, the battle that's going on in Dale and in front of the mountain. Yeah, because that's the thing. Of course, we start off with those battles in Dale, the fight in Dale and the fight outside the mountain. But when Thorin and Dwalin and Keely and Feely go off to Ravenhill, and then when Bilbo and Toriel and Legolas go over there, we focus mainly with them. You know, as opposed to cutting back. I mean, I think we cut once or twice back to Dale, but the main focus is what's going on over here. And rightly so, because of course, you know, we've got some real, you know, this is sufficient for a climax in itself. You know, this is important. You know, this has been built. You know, the fight between Azog and Thorin has been built up since the first movie, and of course, the fight between Legolas and Bolg was built up in the second movie. So we want to see the conclusions to those fights. And they are pretty epic. They really are. It's very much akin to, you know, in Revenge of the Sith. You know, when you've got the fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan, and simultaneously you've got the fight between Yoda and the Emperor. It's a similar sort of thing to that. So Legolas finally manages to kill Bolg. Finally gets him. And quite spectacularly too, because they do that thing, because Legolas is using his... Legolas finally runs out of arrows! He finally runs out of arrows! Yeah, I just thought I'd mention that. But so Legolas is using his 2 knives at this point, because he's given Orcrist back to Thorin. Because Thorin was... because the way these 2 fights are going on, you've got Legolas and Thorin... Sorry, you've got Legolas and Bolg fighting down here, and then up on the height, on this frozen lake, you've got Azog and Thorin fighting. And there was a bit where Thorin was fighting with these various other orcs, and one of them had Thorin pinned down and was going to kill him, and Legolas chucked Orcrist upright into the chest cavity of this orc, killing him, because of course he had no arrows left. So he just started, what can I chuck instead? Orcrist, chuck! Right through the chest. So that was... so Thorin is, of course, using Orcrist now to fight Azog, and obviously Legolas is using his 2 knives. And we have a similar thing, you know, what we got in Desolation of Smaug, where Legolas and Bolg have that lock up. You know, Legolas went to stab him with Orcrist, missed, and then Bolg grabs his arm. We have a similar thing there, and but Legolas essentially goes, "Not this time. I don't think so," and breaks the lock up off, and then manages to kill him by stabbing Bolg straight through the top of the head. You know, knife straight through. Yeah, that's a pretty sure way of killing him. And then because they're fighting essentially on this sort of like bridge / walkway type thing. So when Legolas kills Bolg, and Bolg falls from this bridge to the you know, to the floor way below, and of course this bridge is sort of collapsing as well, like there's bits of rock falling off it, you know, and when Bolg hits the floor, a large bit of rock from the bridge follows him down and lands right on top of him. So if the knife from Legolas didn't kill him, that rock, those boulders sure as hell would have done. So that's Bolg taken care of. And while all this is going on, Bilbo finally regains consciousness. Yeah, he finally wakes up, and as he does, he sees that the eagles are coming. Yeah, the eagles arrive, and they of course fly over to the plain in front of the mountain and wipe out X amount of orcs there. And Radagast's there riding on one of the eagles, and Beorn is too. And Beorn drops down from one of the eagles and turns into his bear form and starts fighting. So that's really good. I'd like to have seen more of Beorn, because that's all we see, that shot of him arriving on the eagle, changing into his bear form and then joining the fight. We don't see any more of him, but I hope in the extended edition we could well do. You know, sorry to go off point, but I think there will be a lot added in the extended edition, because of course the runtime for this movie is 2 hours 24 minutes. Very short for a Middle-earth movie, the shortest of all of them, as I'm sure you guys know. So I think we will get a hell of a lot added in the extended edition. So the extended edition of the Battle of the Five Armies will definitely be worth getting, because and when you sit down and watch it, as you watch it, you get that feeling, you know, that yeah, I'm sure in the extended edition we'd see more here. You know, there'd be stuff added here, you know what I mean? You get that feeling, so I'm sure we may well have more of Beorn in the Battle of the Five Armies extended edition, hopefully. So yeah, the eagles arrive and taking out orcs, and where the fight's going on in front of the mountain and in Dale, that's where the eagles go and help. So Bolg is dead, and then of course we have the conclusion to the fight between Thorin and Azog. Now Thorin kills Azog, he does, but in the process he's fatally wounded himself. He is, because basically Azog has Thorin pinned down on the ice, and he's got his blade, and he's essentially they're in a lockup. You know, Thorin's got Orcrist like that, and Azog's pressing down on him with his blade, and it's like they're in a complete lockup. Like, no, you know, like something's got to give, and Thorin eventually gives way, and well, he doesn't really give way. He just like swipes his sword from underneath the blade, Azog's blade, and Azog's blade goes right through Thorin's chest. And then as Azog does that, Thorin rams Orcrist right through Azog's chest. So essentially they both impaled each other. And of course, Azog dies quite soon after, and of course Thorin's laid there. So after Azog gets rammed through the chest with Orcrist, he just slumps into a heap at the side of Thorin, and obviously Thorin's laid there on his back on the ice. It can barely move, and then obviously Bilbo comes over to him, and basically Thorin dies with Bilbo at his side, and he apologises to Bilbo for the way he treated him the last time they were together, for what he did trying to kill him, and for being, for his descent into madness. He apologised to him, and their part, to quote Thorin, the part in friendship. He says, I wanted for us to part in friendship, so I'm glad I finally had that chance. And it's really sad, because of course it's kind of like, no sooner has Thorin redeemed himself from how he was at the low point he was at earlier. A similar thing with Boromir in Fellowship of the Ring. No sooner has he redeemed himself, he dies. Oh, it's a tough scene. It really is. And of course, Fili and Kili get dying too. It's tough. It's really, really tough. Yeah. But Richard Armitage does a good job in that scene. Thorin's death scene is very good, and of course Martin Freeman does such a good job as well. Like, he doesn't know what to do. I mean, when Thorin, because obviously Bilbo's right at his side, and Thorin dies, and Bilbo essentially has, like a breakdown at the side of Thorin. Oh, it's tough. It's really well done, because it's one of the most interesting things. Of course, when we talk about Lord of the Rings, we always talk about how much is at stake in that. But when you think, our heroes, of course, Boromir dies, but and of course Gandalf the Grey dies, but most of our heroes survive till the end. But we lose 3 of our main heroes in it. Oh man, it's tough. We're not used to that, because like, we never had to worry about Aragorn or Legolas or Gimli dying. But yeah, Thorin, Fili and Kili, oh wow. It is, thinking about it, it's tough. Yeah, but sorry to go off point. I know there was some debate as to whether the 3 characters would in fact be killed off or not. But yeah, but of course I can assure you they are killed off in the movie. It would have been such a shame if Peter Jackson diverted from the book there. It would have been a shame, because it would have ruined it, because Thorin, Fili and Kili, they have to die. As sad as it is, they have to die. Yeah, it's sad, but Martin Freeman and Richard Armitage do such a good job in that scene. It's really well done. Yeah. And Evangeline Lilly, Toriel, when she's mourning over Kili, when she's knelt beside his body at the end, that's really well done. That's really well done too. They did a good job in this. They really did. Because again, because it's something, obviously, we knew pretty well, despite the debate, that they probably were going to die, the 3 of them. but we didn't know how they were going to die really. That, I mean, that could have, you know, but the way they handled it I thought was quite well done. I thought it was, you know, it was good how they killed, like building it up. They killed Feely, then they killed Keely. So obviously they'd really got, Azog had really got to Thorin, you know, and then finally, yeah, Thorin manages to kill, Azog manages to kill Thorin, but yet Thorin still manages to get his revenge too by killing Azog, and of course Legolas handles Bolg. So yeah, so with that, the battle's won. Yeah, the enemy commanders Bolg and Azog have been killed, and of course the mountain is safe, and of course Dale is now safe. So yeah, the battle's won, but obviously it's not been an easy victory. There's been a lot of loss, but yeah, really epic battle, really epic battle. I don't, you know, if you were just going to see this movie for the battle, you wouldn't be disappointed. So yeah, so with the death of Thorin and Azog, the battle comes to an end. The battle's won. And following this, of course, everyone goes their separate ways. Do you know, I know I haven't really mentioned this, but I did have some problems with this movie, and my problem is with the end, so that's why I've saved it until the end. Of course, I had a bit of a problem with not seeing, with them not taking that leave Sauron to me thing any further, you know, with Saruman. Would have been nice. Obviously, that was a problem for me. I would have liked to have seen some more of that and some more of Saruman dealing with Sauron. But fair enough. But yeah, the end. Obviously, as I explained that earlier, you know, better to show little than to show too much and regret it later. But the ending of this movie, this is where things kind of, where I had some problems. Now, I was wanting to see the burial of Thorin, Feely and Kili. We don't see that. Obviously we see their death scenes, but we don't see the burial, because obviously in the book when Thorin's buried, it tells you of how he's buried with the Arkenstone, how he's buried with Orcrist, and of course I think even at his death scene, of course, he makes peace with Thranduil and Bard, obviously Bilbo too. So it would have been nice if, obviously, as well as Bilbo being with Thorin at his death, if Thranduil and Bard could have been there too. And it would have been nice if we could have seen the burial of Feely and Keely and Thorin being buried with the Arkenstone and Orcrist. So that was something. But no, after we have Thorin's death, then of course the battle's over and everyone goes their separate ways. And Bilbo says goodbye to the dwarfs, of course, and the remaining dwarfs. Of course, Feely, Keely and Thorin are the only three of the dwarfs that die, but of course that's more than enough, you know. So following that, Bilbo and Gandalf then take their leave and begin the journey home. And then of course, when they eventually reach the borders of the Shire, Gandalf then says to Bilbo, you know, that he has to leave him now, and they in turn go their separate ways. Now that's a really nice scene when Bilbo and Gandalf part ways, but following that, this is when my problem really is. This really was, I didn't like the ending. But this part, obviously, I didn't like the fact that the way. I would have liked Thorin's death scene to have been done, of course, with Bard and Thranduil there too, and I would have liked to have seen the burial. Obviously, that is a valid problem I have, but this problem that I have, that I really with the ending, which I really didn't like, I have to say, in fairness, it is not the movie's fault. It is the book's fault. Because of course the way this ends is after Gandalf and Bilbo part ways, which I like that scene. That's fine. I really like that scene. It's what comes after I don't like, because Bilbo of course returns to Bag End, and there he finds that there's an auction taking place at his house. And to be honest, things get a bit comedic and slapsticky here, and a bit the tone goes a bit too light. But again, it's not the movie's fault, because this happens in the book. Because Bilbo gets home and sees this auction. He's like, "What the hell's going on?" And the auctioneer says, "Well, you know, we assumed Bilbo Baggins was dead, since we haven't heard or seen from him in 13 months. He'd been gone, obviously, he'd been gone for 13 months, so they presumed he was dead." And of course he then has to prove he is who he says he is, and of course he does this by showing the auctioneer the contract he signed to be part of Thorin's company. So of course that establishes that he is who he says he is, and that he is in fact alive and not dead. But there was just honestly, the tone of that scene, because of course there's the his reaction to his stuff being auctioned off, and said, "I'll take that back now, thank you very much." It just seemed to really clash with, because of course we have this really intense battle and this really emotional stuff with Thorin and Fili and Keely dying and all this sadness, and then to go from that to just this light-hearted scene with this auction. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I'm sorry everyone. I think maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just my problem, you know. But again, either way, in fairness to the movie, it's not the movie's fault, because that is in the book, that he gets home and there's an auction because they think he's dead, that he's been dead. Yeah, they didn't, they hadn't heard from him in 13 months, so he presumed you were dead. That's in the book. It's not the film's fault. But of course, when the way they've diverted from the book, this could be one of the things they could have left out the movie, and I wouldn't have had a problem with it. But fair enough, it's just one of those things. So of course, following that, Bilbo then of course returns home after dismissing the auctioneer and everyone, and then we see him, start to put his house back together again, and then we then of course he's standing in his living room, and then of course he just stops still, and then of course takes the ring out of his waistcoat pocket and holds it in his hand, and he's looking at it. And then with that scene we transition to 60 years later, and then obviously, so Ian Holm, the older Bilbo, is stood there with the ring in his hand, and then of course there's a knock at the door, and we get and then we subsequently find that it's Gandalf, and that of course leads into Fellowship of the Ring. So that was a nice little transition, and with that we have the end of the movie. So in terms of people debating whether this film was gonna like link up with Fellowship of the Ring, it kinda does, because of course That's what happens at the beginning of Fellowship. Gandalf, of course, arrives in the Shire and goes to visit Bilbo and things. So, of course, that's how this one ends, with Gandalf arriving. Yeah, I mean, do you know what? I honestly think the problem I have with the ending is my problem, because I think the way I was going into it, I was expecting a big ending, you know, like Return of the King with the multiple endings. I was expecting something like that, but my problem is, I think, I wasn't appreciating the fact that this movie, while being the final instalment of the Hobbit trilogy, it's not the final instalment of the Middle-earth saga. Like, it ends the Hobbit, but it begins Lord of the Rings, so maybe it shouldn't have had the big ending, because Return of the King should have the big ending, because it's the end of the whole saga, you know. So that's maybe my fault for expecting a big ending, because the Hobbit isn't the end. Of course, we've got Lord of the Rings to come after, but I think it's just the fact that, you know, we were never going to see Thranduil again, we were never going to see Bard again, we were never going to see Radagast again, we were never going to see Tauriel again, you know. So I was expecting, but maybe in the extended edition we'll get something more. And like, yeah, I genuinely think there's going to be a lot of stuff added to this one. Yeah, but honestly, that was, yeah, despite those problems, I still loved this movie, really enjoyed it, and like I say, I thought it was worth the wait. I can say it was worth the wait, but yeah, I just had a couple of problems, but like I say, I think maybe they were my own fault for not going in there with the right frame of mind, you know. Like, I was looking at it, I wasn't looking at it as though it was like the end of The Hobbit and the end as the start of Lord of the Rings, you know. So I think that's where I was going wrong in terms of my problem with the ending. But yes, that pretty much brings this to a close. Also, one final thing, there's been talk about whether the end credits would mirror those of Return of the King, and I can say that they do. The end credits of this movie are very similar to those in Return of the King, you know, with the picture of each actor and their name. They do that here, so I was pleased with that, because I was hoping they would do, and yeah, they do that here, so I can confirm that they do. So nice ending credits, and of course a really nice song to go with it by Billy Boyd. So yeah, that was a nice touch, having those style of credits, because I really loved that with Return of the King, the way they went through the credits like that. So it was nice that they did that again here. So yeah, that pretty much wraps this review up. But yeah, I do highly recommend this. I think as the Hobbit movies go, this could very well be the best one, but I do think the extended edition is going to be better. In terms of the Middle-earth saga as a whole, I have trouble saying it's better than Return of the King, because I do stand by my claim that Return of the King is the pinnacle of the Middle-earth saga. And when you think, it does make sense that it should be, since Return of the King is what all of those movies were building up to. But in terms of this movie as a finale of the Hobbit trilogy, yes, it really does live up to expectations. And like I said, aside from the ending, but of course that may just be my problem, you guys may not have a problem with the ending at all. It might just be you know, the main body of the movie is impressive and highly entertaining and really enjoyable. It's a hell of a lot of fun, it really is. I'll always stand by that saying, I think the Hobbit movies are more accessible to viewers than Lord of the Rings, you know. Like, I think like a passive watcher could get away with watching the Hobbit better than he could with Lord of the Rings, because I think the Hobbit movies are more light-hearted movies, even though there's definitely a darkness in it, and of course sadness in those movies as demonstrated in this last movie. But yeah, I think this is an easier watch than what Lord of the Rings would be. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, and yeah, I recommend it. I think you'll all enjoy it when you go and see it. Yes, so really good. Really enjoyed it and highly recommend it. And I'd like to thank you all for watching this review. And of course, sorry it's been all over the place and a bit unorganised, and I'm sorry for going off point at times. But thank you for sticking with me, and thank you for watching this review. And if you guys go to see it, I hope you enjoy it too. And thank you again for watching. Hope you guys enjoy the movie, and I'll see you all next time. Thank you, everyone.